Welcome back to SUP FM, and this week we've got Dave Cornthwaite, an adventurer by trade. Nobody on the planet has travelled further than Dave Cornthwaite on a stand-up paddleboard in one journey. As far as we know, this is still true today, but he paddled 2,404 miles down the Mississippi River.
Aloha, and welcome to SUP FM, the podcast for stand-up paddleboarders everywhere. So with no further ado, let's get out on the water and on with the show. Here are your hosts, Nick and Simon.
Good day, Dave. It's great to have you on SUP FM. Thanks so much for spending the time to come on.
It's my pleasure. It's good to be here.
That's great. So what are you doing at the moment? Have you just, apparently you just flown back from the States or what?
Yeah, I landed back in Heathrow about 2 hours ago. I've just made it back to my apartment in London, and I've been in the States for a couple of different reasons. I was running a short expedition down the Mississippi River as part of the Exploring Mindset series that I've been doing for 4 years, and then I was just in Boston launching a brand new expedition.
That's crazy, because we're going to obviously talk about the Mississippi SUP trip that you did in 2011 today. But before you do that, you seem to have designed yourself an incredible life. I think you said yourself one of your most exciting projects ever is coming up soon. So tell us about the Yestival.
Yeah, well, a couple of years ago, I swam down the bottom half of the Missouri River, and I had a team with me. And before that expedition, I decided that we'd have a kind of a team uniform. And rather than having Missouri River Expedition on the shirts, I came up with a message that I guess has been my motto and the summary of basically how I've been living this really cool life for the last 10 years, and it was Say Yes More. Ever since then, I've wanted to put on a festival, but until now haven't had the time, and I'm glad to say that between the 23rd and the 25th of October, just south of London in a farm, I'm hosting the first Yestival, which is, I guess, a celebration of all things positive, adventurous thinking, how to make a living doing stuff you love, and I've pulled in favours from all of my adventurous friends, so we've got a lineup of over 30 great speakers, and yeah, it's looking good.
It must be a nightmare to organize that.
I wouldn't say nightmare. It's definitely a heck of a lot of work. But I'm learning a lot. I've never put together an event like this before, so I'm learning a lot from it. I've got a really good team who is comprised of people who I met this summer alone through the Say Yes More Yes tribe. So it's looking really cool. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I can visualize 200 people walking across the fields to the marquee now and ready to make it happen.
So where exactly is it? Is it in a beautiful little field outside of London?
It's in a beautiful little farm just outside of London, so 40 minutes train ride south of Waterloo. Yeah, it's just going to be magic. I think autumn is a beautiful time of year. Everyone's like, why are you doing it in October? Isn't it going to be raining? But I don't know if anyone spent time in London in August, but it's also raining. So the weather's great right now, and the leaves are starting to turn red. So yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. It's just an excuse to wrap up warm, listen to some incredible tales, and maybe plant some seeds for the rest of time for everybody attending.
Oh, it sounds like an amazing trip. I wish I could get over. But in London, I read something. I think, do you guys do a night of adventure in London as well? Is that something where people get to speak about adventure? Are there a lot of those things happening in London?
Yeah, there's an amazing community of adventurous folk and people who are just interested in it if they're not partaking in London. And I feel like I've been all over the world in the last few years, and I haven't experienced any city or area where there is this huge community of people who think adventurously. So yeah, there's a lot of nights of adventure, tales of adventure. I'm actually speaking tomorrow night in London, which is Thursday 15th of October. I'm speaking in West London for an event called Inspire Your Adventure. So yeah, there's a lot of this stuff going on, and there's a huge amount of interest. I think as people start to realize that getting outside is more akin to the human spirit than staying inside the walls.
Exactly. But I mean, obviously, so you're an accomplished career adventurer. How many miles have you got of non-motorized journeys and around the world under your belt?
Well, I guess to sum up that project, it's called Expedition 1000. The idea is to do 25 different 1,000 plus mile adventures, and each one uses a different form of non-motorized transport. I've completed 11 of those so far, totting up just over 19,000 miles in the process. So not even halfway through the project, still got 14 more to go, and journey number 12 has just been launched, really. So early December, myself and my friend Leon McCarran, who's a brilliant filmmaker, he's an Irish guy, but we won't hold that against him. We're going to be walking over 1,000 miles around the Abraham Path in the Middle East, and we'll be the first people to complete the full through hike before they launch it officially next year. Is I think a walking trail to rival the Appalachian and the Pacific Crest.
And for you, will that be the first 1,000 mile walk?
Yeah, for sure. So every journey is using a different form of non-motorized transport, or at least means of non-motorized travel. So I haven't done a walk yet. I haven't done a run yet. So yeah, my feet are going to be put into action.
And the Mississippi sub paddle, how did that fit in? What number was that?
The stand-up paddleboard journey down the length of the Mississippi was journey number 4. So before that, I'd completed a skateboard journey across Australia, which was the world's longest journey by skateboard at the time. And then I kayaked the length of the Murray River in Australia. And then I rode a tandem bike from Vancouver to Vegas with my friend Sebastian. And yeah, then later in 2011, took to my stand-up paddleboard and started descending from Minnesota.
Because back in 2011, stand-up paddle wasn't obviously as popular as it is now, 4 years later. So can you recall when you first heard about stand-up paddling?
Yeah, well, you're dead right. I mean, it's incredible in the last 4 years how much the sport has grown. In fact, I think for the last 6 years, it's been the fastest growing recreational sport in the world. But back then in 2011, when I started the journey, no one had descended the Mississippi River. And I had only heard about the sport a year earlier when a guy called Bill Kenwright, who had actually been following my skateboarding journey in 2007, he looked after Jimmy Lewis paddleboards in the UK and sent me a demo board just to try out. And I loved it. Within 10 seconds, I remember thinking, I need to do a journey on this. It was just so simple. And the funny thing was, that first ride, I'd forgotten, or I didn't even know that I needed to put a fin on it. So I was wondering why the thing was turning so much. But even then, I thought, this is great. I can imagine doing a big trip on this. And then I started thinking about it.
Yeah, one of the things I love about it is it's a perfect vehicle for exploration. I mean, you can just see everything from a completely different angle. It's fascinating. Love stand-up paddle.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Out of every way that I've traveled, every adventure, I think it's really hard to top the Mississippi as my favorite journey of Expedition 1000 so far, and paddleboarding was so much a part of that. And I've gone on to do a lot of other paddleboarding shorter trips as well. I think it's one thing that I'll continue to do until the end of time.
Excellent. But why the Mississippi? I mean, there's the Danube, there's the Rhine, there's Thames, there's all kinds of rivers around the world that are closer or more convenient. Why the Mississippi?
I guess I wanted a challenge, and the Mississippi had always been on my mind from a young kid when I read about Huckleberry Finn, and I think the Mississippi was a really mysterious river, and I knew not much about it. So when I started thinking about it, I was actually considering paddling from London all the way down to Morocco via the waterways in France, crossing the Channel before that, of course, and then down the western coast of the Mediterranean before crossing over the Gibraltar Strait. But for some reason, it just didn't quite ring true with me. So I started thinking, okay, let's make this a little more simple, which has been another theme in my life recently, just simplifying everything. And just paddling source to sea down the Mississippi had a beautiful feel to it. And regardless of all the warnings I had from people who, I guess, had just read about the Mississippi or heard bad things about it, I'm so glad I chose that option. Yeah,
because, I mean, there can be a few dangers involved, I guess. Did you experience any?
Well, this is the thing. You know, there's dangers in everything. I've done a lot of these trips, but I think I've probably been most fearful when I've been in a car driving around the M25. So, paddling down the Mississippi, you encounter obviously lots of water, potential turbulence. There's the odd whirlpool now and then. There's a lot of industrial traffic on the Mississippi. The more the bigger it, the bigger the river gets, the bigger the traffic. And there's alligators and things like that, and there's some snakes kicking around. But as it is, I didn't consider any of those dangerous. They're all just parts of the journey, things to deal with. And if you travel cautiously and sensibly, it's very unlikely that any of those things are going to grab you.
Are there locks as such on the river?
Yeah, there are. So there's 26 walls across the Mississippi. The top 6 are without locks. So the top 500 miles, actually, if you look at it on a map, it's shaped like a question mark. And you've got six dams in those first 500 miles between the headwaters in Lake Itasca and Minneapolis, which is the first big city. And then once you get to Minneapolis, they start having locks in, which enables industrial traffic, the barges, to move up and down the river. And then the bottom lock is at St. Louis, and after that you have about 1,800 miles down to the Gulf.
Okay, that's unbelievable. So how did you go about planning this? I mean, it must have taken a great deal of preparation, or did you just go in head first?
Oh no, I went in head first. Actually think it's been a while, so I think I just got my distances wrong. But I think the bottom 1,000 or so miles from St. Louis down is free flowing water, more or less. So in terms of preparation, I always just work out what might halt the trip prematurely, what might cause me injury or worse, and then I'm just it's usually just mentally just readying myself to deal with those situations before it happens. I don't really look at any photos on any of my journeys or videos before I go. I just want to experience everything fresh and be ready to act without I guess previous experience or ideas. I just like to experience everything super fresh. But what I do is write to people who might be able to offer a more enriching experience. So it's an obvious one. When you're on the water, I try and find kayaking clubs, canoeing clubs, and just say, this is what I'm doing. I'm coming on down. I'd love to kind of maybe even give a talk to your group, or guys, come out and join me on the water. Let's turn this into Forrest Gump. And then those just a few emails will kind of start a telegraph working up and down a river. And it definitely happened in the Mississippi's case.
Okay, so that's how you and then you get to meet people, and they invite you into their homes and give you meals and all kinds of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's people are so essential to all of these trips for me. I really like meeting people who live different ways, and I learn a heck of a lot from that. And it's also really nice to be able to share the experience of a journey like this. As the Mississippi is a brilliant case in point where, I traveled down it having had no prior experience. I hadn't really paddleboarded a great deal before that. I definitely hadn't paddled on the Mississippi before, and almost everybody I met on that river said, "How are you doing that? We've been told since we were children is that the Mississippi's dangerous and we shouldn't go near it, and yet here you are from England just paddleboarding down it, standing up, no less." And I really like kind of debunking these myths that seem to fester in our society. Anything that is considered slightly out of the box is usually deterred. So I really like just taking that, and that's one reason that I don't prep. I don't physically train. Quite often, I don't even practice on the form of transport before I start a journey. I think most things we hear that stop us doing stuff is absolute nonsense, and the advice we get is from people who've never done that thing.
But obviously you have to plan insofar as how much gear you're going to take with, and when you're going to eat and things like that. So how do you, because you obviously can't carry all you're going to eat on your stand-up paddleboard. So how are you planning to do that, and how did it turn out?
For sure.
As far as food and gear go, yeah.
Yeah, the journey in total took 82 days. So in terms of gear, I didn't need a great deal. I had a hammock that also doubles up as a tent. Brilliant Hammock Bliss Sky Tent if anyone's looking to take a hammock on their next journey. Then a sleeping mat, sleeping bag, contact lenses, really important for me because I'm super short-sighted, and without them I'm basically just a mole.
Okay.
And then and then basic equipment. I had a little solar panel just to charge up my phone. And then food. I just, as soon as I started, I got out Google Maps and the river map that I bought in Minneapolis, and I just worked out how long it would be between the shop that I was at the top of the river, and when the next resupply point would be. And I continued doing that all the way down the river.
So, Dave, when you were mentioning resupplying, did you have somebody following you and resupplying you all the way down, or were you just talking about stopping at a Kmart?
No, I definitely didn't have anyone, any support or anything like that. I just worked out how long it would be before I'd get to the next resupply point, whether it was a small town or a gas station near the river, and I'd make sure I had enough food for that and a couple of residual days as well. And then I carried a tiny cool box with me and a little jet boil stove, and that was about that. It was pretty simple. All the way down though, I was supplemented. I just met people, fishermen, people who were out picnicking on the banks of the river in parks. I'd come into a town now and then, and people would just say, "Why are you walking around with a really long paddle?" And I just meet people in so many different ways. And just I think out of the 82 days, 16 nights I was taken into people's homes, fed, showered. And there were plenty of other days when I met people just for a spontaneous lunch or snack.
That's wonderful. Do you think that's a distinctly American thing? Because I know Americans are very friendly like that and welcome you in.
No, it's not distinctly American at all. Americans are super friendly, and every journey that I've done in the States, I've whether on road or water, I've had a similar experience. But the same goes the world over. I think doing an endurance adventure really refreshes your faith in humanity, and it reminds you that people are eminently good. And I think part of it is, the idea of doing a big journey, especially under your own steam, is just really magical. And it's something that I think everybody dreams or thinks about at some point in their lives, but don't often get around to doing it. So when somebody does cycle or paddleboard through your neighborhood and you have a chance to get involved and just hear those stories, I think the next natural step is just to be kind and try and support them. I do it an awful lot now. From having experienced such kindness from people as much as I can, I'll help others when I see them come through.
I think people must be truly inspired when they hear your stories. And is it part of your game plan to contact the media and the press on the way down, just to tell your story?
Sometimes it depends. It depends on the trip. More and more, I'm becoming. I think my most important work is actually happening in between the journeys, and a lot of that involves helping other people just kind of set off, leaving their jobs, and working out what they need to do for their own adventure. The Mississippi, the Missouri trip, and a couple of others, I've pretty actively kind of got in touch with the media and just said, this is what I'm doing, often because it helps raise a little bit more money for Copperfield, the charity that I fundraise for. But more and more these trips are for soul food. There, I go on 1,000+ miler just so I can have a bit of a break, and just remember everything that's really core to me. And I think media can get in the way of that a bit. I'll never turn down an interview if a journalist hears about the trip, but I don't actively pursue it quite as much as I did. Not to say that I won't in the future. I think each journey has its merits, but quite often I do pretty basic things that anybody could do, and I just like sharing those on social media. I really like telling those stories.
But I think as you grow more on social media and you get more followers, I suppose the need for traditional press evaporates a little, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess I've always felt that. I've tried to structure this weird adventure career around not being dependent on producing a product or getting any financial worth out of my journeys. I do them because I think they kind of sum me up. But I just love sleeping in tents and pushing myself. I don't think there's many of my trips would count amongst the most fascinating or hardcore endurance journeys, even in the last 10 years. But that doesn't really bother me. I know I can bring my own unique flavor to it, and with the advent of social media, there's a brilliant potential there to grow a crowd. And I have so many really loyal followers who will buy my books when I release them and come to my talks, and that's enough for me to be sustainable even now. So the idea of that growing is just great.
I have to admit, I bought 2 of your books as well.
Thank you, buddy.
No problem.
Which ones?
Well, it was the date one, which I thought was hugely entertaining. I don't know how you managed to do that, because it looked like a psychological nightmare going through about 60 women.
Probably it was terrifying. Going through, it was just dating.
I think it sounds like a hugely entertaining 60 days or however long it was. And I read your other book about the trip in America on, what is her name? You named that bicycle something.
Yeah, Priscilla the bike car. So that was
So,
Life in the Slow Lane, which was my last book actually. I'm in the process of writing what's effectively a sequel to that, an update on where I am and what I'm doing and how I think and yeah, how I bring this weird life together.
I know it's fascinating. And for all you guys out there, just I really recommend Dave's books because they're hugely entertaining. So looking forward to the next one.
Thanks. And I didn't even pay you to say that. Thanks,
Yeah.
buddy.
But clearly, it may not all be as fun as one may derive from your YouTube videos and your books. Weren't there times when you just thought about chucking it all in, especially on the Mississippi?
No, never. Um,
Re-
yeah, I think I don't know how whether that's a surprise to you or not, but I don't really plan too far ahead. I plan one journey at a time, and that just ensures that I'm really there. I'm in the zone, and I'm in the moment when I'm getting ready for it. After Yeah, so I guess I don't think I can plan for my future self. You're going to go on one of these big trips and, be traveling for a few months and you're going to come out at the end slightly different, slightly changed. And I just couldn't imagine planning a journey kind of more than 6 months in advance. Even in between I'm really nomadic. I live out of two bags, and even in between my adventures, I'm still always on the move. So I'm always having that adventure, always being a little vulnerable in terms of where I'm staying, always meeting new people because I'm always on the move doing different projects, even if they're not endurance journeys. So I really like being here and being now, and I've never felt the need to quit. If I ever feel like I'm tired or my body's breaking, then I'll just sleep and eat, and everything feels better when you wake up.
Did you have any of those days on the river? I mean, you must have felt like if you had flu or something, or a back problem, or like an arm injury or something after paddling 1,000 miles. You must think, oh,
Mm.
do I really have to get up and do this again today?
Um, Sometimes you're tired and weary for sure, but I never really push myself. I don't. In terms of time, I'm never racing anybody. I've the only records that I've got are because I've just chosen to do something that no one else has done before. It's kind of that simple. And with a distance, I don't think there's any glory or grace in a distance record. You just need to give yourself more time than anyone has before, and eventually you're going to overcome their distance. So I don't really place a great deal of importance in the records that I've got or broken at some point. And I really just love the journey. So if I feel like I need to rest, then I will. I'll stop and I'll leave my hammock swinging, and I'll read and write a little bit that day. I'll maybe go into the nearby town if there's one close. Um, but yeah, I think I don't really understand when people are doing a big trip like this, like a big endurance journey, and then give up at some point. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think usually that means that it's been decided upon for the wrong reasons. And for me, I'll only do a trip like this when I'm physically ready for it. It usually takes a couple of months after each journey to start feeling like that's the case. And I think only do stuff if you really want to do it. There's no need to do anything but that.
Mm. I mean, there were two other guys paddling almost at the same time as you, weren't there? And that guy, Matt Crofton, he wrote a book called Mighty, which I read as well.
Oh, Matt's an awesome, awesome guy. I was paddling, maybe I was into day 10 or so, and I hear this whistle and then this man shouting, and I'm alone on the river, and up above Minneapolis, it's really windy, and maybe only 50 meters across. And I looked behind, and there was another guy on a stand-up paddleboard. I couldn't believe it. So I slowed up, and Matt caught me up, and we high-fived mid-river, and he just told me his story. And he's an amazing guy. He'd almost died the year before. He'd been in a coma for a long time, and just miraculous that he survived. And he was still physically impaired in many ways. His body was really slow, his immune system wasn't too hot, but he was just an absolute champion. And yeah, his book is brilliant. It's called Mighty. I think if anybody wants an inspiring, adventurous read, then that's definitely the book to go and buy.
Yeah, he's just about to get a publishing deal as well, because I think he self-published it.
Mm.
And we're looking forward to chatting to him on Sup FM as soon as we can. So that's going to be fun too. Because it's interesting to hear about two different angles on that same year, on that same river from the stand-up paddling.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was great just to see somebody else on a board. It was still pretty rare to see that back in 2011, let alone on the same stretch of river on the Mississippi. And Matt was traveling super slow just because of his physical condition. He was still recovering from his illness the year before, and I think he'd started 4 years before me. But I didn't know about him. He wasn't too hot on the social media at the beginning of the trip, at least, and so it was a total surprise to see him. But really magic, and we still chat, and I love that man. He's just a super example of a human being.
Excellent. So what about some other stand-up paddle trips that you've done? I saw a video about you going around Martinique.
Well, yeah, I took a team of 5, including myself, around the Caribbean island of Martinique in December last year. And it was the first of a new project that I launched last year, alongside Origin paddleboards, and it's called Project Origin. The idea is to do 25 different stand-up paddleboard journeys. Is this sounding familiar? But each one is just 100 miles or more. So the Martinique rounding was the first one. The other guys hadn't done a great deal of paddleboarding, at least 2 of them. But it was a superb trip. It was really hard, actually. It was one of the hardest journeys that I've done, and you might think, oh yeah, whatever, Caribbean island, but especially the north and west coast, east coast, sorry, we were getting absolutely whacked by huge swells coming in from the Atlantic, nowhere to land at all, just because there was no breakwater or handy coves. So we got tossed around quite a lot by the waves. And in terms of, I've been teaching myself how to make films in the last couple of years. I think it's a beautiful way to tell a story. And if anybody has 18 minutes to spare, I won an award at the Wild Film Festival in southwest England for as best film for the Martinique rounding. So that's called the Marty Circumstap on my Vimeo channel.
It's a fantastic video. I'll pop it into and I'll embed it into the show notes as well, so you can watch it. But it's it's really well done. It's beautiful. I mean, your videos are getting better and better every year.
Well, I guess that's kind of, I think whenever you do something for the first time, you're going to be rubbish at it. And the more you do something, the more you improve. And I really like giving myself a purpose with everything that I do. And I see such potential in sharing my trips. And other stories through film, and I've got to a stage now where I'm really happy with the standard I'm at, and I'm really proud of that film. I think it really sums up adventure for me.
I just caught your I don't know if it's your latest video, but a little trip that you did with Alastair Humphries down into Dorset this morning, stand-up paddling as well, and the quality of that was fantastic. It really was amazing.
Oh, thanks very much. It was. Al and I have known each other a long time. I guess we're part of this adventurous community in London, and Al's done some amazing trips, long journeys, as well as his launching the micro adventures a couple of years ago. But believe it or not, coming into this summer, he'd never stand-up paddleboarded before. So I felt like we needed to rectify that. So we went down to Durdle Door off the south coast of Dorset, and Al had his first paddleboarding experience. Apparently he wants to do it again. So he's a glutton for punishment. But I mean, he's a very accomplished man, but his sense of balance is just atrocious.
Because I mentioned on social media to him, I said, you got to do a SUP micro adventure quite a while ago. So it's nice to see that he's finally done that.
Yeah, he has. And please, I don't know if you can embed that film as well into your notes, but it's quite entertaining.
I'm sure I can.
The ending is unexpected.
We're going to have a little film festival in the show notes. It's fantastic. Yeah. Well, Dave, have you got any SUP trips in the future planned?
I will definitely be. I mean, I've got another 2,400 milers in Project Origin, but then the next one won't be until next year. So I don't know what the next one is, in short answer to your question, but there definitely will be more. And I absolutely love these Origin paddleboards. Inflatables are just incredible, in terms of portability, compactness, lightweight now. And I'm so impressed with the Origin boards. And yeah, they sorted us out around Martinique. They're so versatile. So I'm looking forward just to packing one up and going off somewhere remote and doing a few trips next year.
We were trying to get to a few Origin paddleboards for my trip along the Algarve next week. It's a 150 kilometer paddle. And
Oh, that's still happening. Great.
yeah, that's still happening. Yeah. So I'm doing it with Spike Reed, actually, who went around Martinique with you.
Yeah, so Spike's very familiar with the Origin board for sure.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to get those. If not, we'll just carry on without them. But it should be a great trip because they do seem to be incredible paddleboards. Those.
They really are. I've tried out a lot of boards in my time, and yeah, I'm super impressed with Origin. And I don't really use anything unless it's really going to serve a good purpose for me. So, when I tried out these guys' boards, and they brought out a new iteration as well. So it's kind of like the Apple Mac of inflatable paddleboards. It's just they look absolutely beautiful now, as well as doing the job functionally.
I haven't seen them yet. I think they're just launching at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They've got this amazing cork covering, so I'd imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of them all over yachts around the world. But I'm quite looking forward to getting my mitts on one and going on another trip soon.
Excellent. Well, and Dave, all the best with Yestival. I'm sure it's going to be a huge success. And hopefully we'll be able to chat to you again soon after some more stand-up paddle trips.
Absolutely, and if I may, if anybody is interested in coming to Yestival the last weekend of October, just visit sayyestival.com and grab a ticket now. Just have a look at the lineup, and seriously, if you want to say no after that, then we need to work on you.
I said to my daughter this morning, I said, "What do you think Yestival is?" She said, "Well, it's obviously a festival where everybody says yes."
Perfect. You see, it's so simple.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Sup FM, the #1 podcast for stand-up paddlers wherever you are. If you like what you've heard, please leave us a review on iTunes. Until then, we'll see you